a quick side note. Okay, so we are going to transition. So the Club World Cup, we all agree, is a prequel to the World Cup. Leading into this, awarding us, everybody and their mom told me, don't worry, we handle big events every day. Look at college football. We can do this, no issues. And as it turns out, holding a summer tournament anywhere is an issue. So let's bring up one of the main issues. They changed the Qatari World Cup to the winter for heat. Now, we don't see temperatures near as bad as the desert, but how do you feel like the weather is going to affect attendance and performance next year?
Oh, it 100% will.
I don't know. I kind of lean towards it's mostly a non-issue to me because we've hosted a World Cup here and it got freaky hot and it was fine.
But we also just saw Dortmund having to sit inside during a game.
But you even
because it was too hot outside for them.
They're going to have more time leading up to the tournament to acclimate than they did for this one.
And if you think about like Paris a few years ago for like the Women's World Cup, it was like 90s to 100s for and like
hey, I was there.
Yeah, so you know. I think that's something to be expected. Is it a good thing? No, but like it is like it's the summer, so
I think it's also not just the players we need to worry about. I think it's people traveling over and workers, because workers are not going to always have the same situations if they're like working concessions or if they're working directly out in the heat on the outside, walking around. We have people who are coming over to watch. I don't know how many people, right? We didn't have that many organized fan groups actually come to a Club World Cup. Who knows how many are actually going to come over for World Cup? But we have people who are not acclimated to this heat, who are acclimated to drinking a lot. So I think we might see some heat-related health issues on the spectator side. I would go out to venture, and this is something I've been saying across like all the coalitions that the Independent Supporters Council are in and stuff. Zazie can maybe talk to this more, but I think there are lessons to learn from K-pop. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Okay? Stray Kids just did North American dates in many of venues that are going to either be near the World Cup host sites or in the exact same stadiums in both the United States and Canada. And they had issues where we saw the stadiums jacking up the prices of Gatorade and water to the point where spectators were passing out because they couldn't either, if it was not sold out, it was expensive. You had the actual artists canceling halfway through. They were throwing their own waters out. Obviously, like soccer teams are not going to be able to toss their own water bottles out, right? And then there was ingress and egress issues with people standing in the heat, trying to get into the stadiums and out of the stadiums. And I don't know if Zazie has anything to add to that because we both listen to K-pop for those who don't know. But I thought it was really actually very telling that if they're not prepared, these stadiums, where as Marcus said, right, we're supposed to be used to hosting these big events, yet here we are seeing even at a concert level for one-offs, they're not prepared for the mass amount of spectators coming in to the stadiums.
Yeah, can I rephrase my answer real quick? I don't think it'll be an issue on the field because I believe that the teams and players, like they do at every World Cup, will take their steps to acclimatize or whatever the word is I'm looking for. I am worried about the supporter side of things for sure. I do think that's way scarier.
Like we've even on our end, we've seen like he have an issue even in the supporter section. Like we're Texas, it's hot and we know it's going to be hot, but that doesn't mean that things happen in the heat. And so I think that like because we live here and because we are kind of used to it, we might be a little more mentally prepared. But Bailey's point, like people are coming from all over the world where it's not exactly like that. And they're going to be kind of expecting to have their own spectator experience that they're used to. So I'm really hopeful that that is something that's being thought of. Unfortunately, I feel like it's not being considered.
We have gotten it. We being ISC, for those who don't know, Independent Supporters Council is working on various coalitions for human rights. It has been brought up to FIFA and it is being brought up to the U.S. Soccer Federation. So hopefully that can get to the host cities that they need to start prepping that. Because the other end of that too, right, is You also have people who are not used to our health system
Yep.
over here. So if they do go down, not only were they just drinking, now they're dehydrated, whatever it might be, but they also have a lovely bill from the hospitals that they might not be
What?
used to
Yeah.
over here.
I will
On
say.
top
So
of that, I hope that they stock up on saline at all these hospitals.
I'm sorry. Some of these hospitals might not be open next year, but this
The
is not a
big,
political
beautiful,
pod,
oh,
so we'll stop it. Anyway,
The big,
K-pop,
beautiful game.
K-pop.
the
That's
big,
what it is.
beautiful game.
That's what it is. I will say, I've always worried that a lot of fair enough. 2 strokes only. Yeah. Just a tip, actually. We can't even get the whole thing. Here's the thing.
Can't
So
afford
a lot of places are going to be overwhelmed, and a lot of fans are going to be disappointed, especially when you come from coming from a place like Mexico or some places you might consider third world. They have at least working public transportation, and they're going to be highly disappointed
Oh my
when
god.
they come here. Speaking of healthcare, that is true. I've traveled to places, and you can technically buy travel health insurance, but here's who are most people won't think that, right? They think
Oh.
it'll work just like their country. Now, granted, Canada and Mexico have semi-decent working healthcare systems, so that might be helpful. And as a side note, depending on which countries qualify and how the temperament of our leadership is, we might have to stack the weights a little bit to get certain teams to play in different countries so that we don't have to worry about visa issues, which yada yada yada. This is what I mean. So this is supposed to be the world's game, and we're supposed to suspend politics momentarily at least to get this done. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to happen. Luckily, in 2028, when we have the Olympics, we will have new leader. No, wait.
No, we won't. And we're already seeing countries who are having their visas denied for Olympic qualifications, like Cuba, right? Their volleyball team. So we're looking at visa issues, not just for teams. We're looking at potential visas for spectators who can get in and their safety once they're over here.
But
it's a whole thing. I have feelings.
So that leads into
that could possibly go wrong right now.
Yeah, that leads into this. So America is not known for being soccer rich in some ways. So if you don't get the travelers to come here, will we have issues filling the stadium? Thoughts?
Well, one, I will say with Club World Cup, talking to Football Supporters Europe and a lot of the supporters from not over here, dynamic pricing blew their minds. This was like their first experience with dynamic pricing and going through how ticketing works in the United States. And so that was interesting to see. And I think sometimes as Americans, we are so used to capitalism and being screwed over by these ticket companies with their fees and their rise in prices at different times for whatever it might be, that we saw in the beginning, especially knowing that there wasn't a lot of consistency to what was happening, right? It was wild to see how expensive some of these tickets were getting, and fan groups, especially from like the clubs that are playing, they were not getting like special ticketing for their fan groups. It was like, welcome to the United States, where this is how it is, right? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, FIFA ticketing is probably going to be a little bit different because it's not just going to be Ticketmaster or whoever running the ticketing. It's going to be FIFA. But I think people need to be ready for a more North American ticketing like view of things when it goes down. But seeing the costs get cut time over time, I think there's other reasons people didn't travel as to why there is less demand. There are people who are not feeling safe to go to stadiums right now. But I think in general, it's not a good look. And I think what we're going to end up seeing, my long story short, to wrap it up, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people. I think there's going to be a lot of corporations buying tickets.
Yes.
And we're going to see a lot of families coming on their corporations like block.
I will say, hold on, Zazzy. I will say that I think this is mostly an American issue. I think in Canada and Mexico, we will run into less of those. Mostly because in Mexico, they almost burnt Azteca down when they were, for those who don't know, when they built that stadium, they gave out lifetime suites, and that included the game, including the World Cup, and FIFA tried to negate that contract. And let's just say, this is what happens when you have strong unions. Let's just say that rule did not go into force. But yes.
San Ursula is for the people.
I think that like what we'll see is kind of similar to what you see with the Olympics, where it's like people don't necessarily like care as much about soccer on the day to day, but when it's like a World Cup or when it's a like Olympics, like that's when people are going to be like, you know what, bet I'm going to spend the money to go. Like I feel like even Bailey's probably been getting a lot more people that like they don't come to FC Dallas games, but like they'll be asking about World Cup tickets, and it's like. I do think that there is going to be, especially more locally, a big uptick in attendance, but I do think that there is going to be more of a problem for the clubs and for the countries that are coming over and their supporters, and having them, one, be able to get the tickets, two, will they even be able to get over here?
There are people in Central and South America. Some of those they've already said, even if you start your visa process now, the visa process won't be done by the World Cup. And the reality is that they should have put in an implementation to where your visa was tied to your ticket, so that if you get a ticket, that is your visa in for the World Cup. That's what's happened in other countries, but big, beautiful game, right? Here we are. So I say that in code for who needs it. But the reality is that we're looking at this. FIFA's gonna have to do something and learn a lesson. And the third market on these things is going to be insane. Insane.
Yeah, my concern for tickets is, plenty of the stuff you guys have brought up, but the fact that they're expanding the field so much means we're going to have some garbage matchups. And I think even in a World Cup where there's none of the other political ramifications going on, you might struggle with some of those games even. So I think a lot of these early group stage games and some of the early knockout rounds are going to have issues regardless in terms of attendance.
Dallas is probably going to see some pretty good games just because of where we're landing on some of the stuff, but it really might actually hurt financially some of the host locations if they get some of these expansion teams and those fans from those expanded countries that maybe wouldn't have usually been able to come in can't make it to the games, right?
So one final thought before we do an ISO on Bailey to go off for, let's say 5 minutes. My thoughts are, as long as let's keep SeatGeek, i.e. Ticketmaster, i.e. whatever other subsidiary they want to use to hide the fact they're a monopoly.
It's all Live Nation.
Yeah.
Yes.
They might come for us, but
them. If we keep them out of it, we might be okay. Quick thought. I want like a 20-second answer. Given all the answers that you just gave me, how do you think the attendance turns out if the U.S. flames out in the group stage?
Good. I don't think anybody's going for the U.S.
I honestly do.
Oh, no.
I kind of agree. I think it's going to be more of like there's a soccer game. Like, it's a World Cup. Like, I think they're going to go regardless of who is playing. And especially the closer it gets to finals, like, those are always the games. Like, let's be real. Whenever I watch the World Cup, I like watching the U.S. side. But, like, I will watch whatever game is happening.
Fair enough.
If people wanted to watch the U.S., they would watch the Gold Cup. And as y'all can see, there were people on this podcast who didn't know they played tonight. So that's how we feel about.
Wow, I feel seen. Go ahead.
It's hard for me to say as a soccer sicko, right? I watch every game I can. So do y'all, I believe, or I know Marcus does. Because I'm going to be tuning in for the worst matchups. So it's hard for me, from my perspective, to say it. But I think that it'll probably be contingent on just what teams in general are around, not just the U.S. per se.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fingers crossed it goes off with as minimal big beautifulness as possible. Matter of fact, we'll just refer to that as going forward. This big beautifulness. Never mind. We can't get into that. So this is